Africa is hitting the ground running to ensure its G20 presidency yields tangible results. International heads and deputy central bank governors, finance ministers, they're all part of the bloc and are gathered in Sandton for several meetings. On day 2 of these meetings, the focus is on the impact of artificial intelligence on sustainable development on the continent, among other key topics. Well, our business reporter, Ntokozo Khumalo, is there for us. Ntokozo, good afternoon to you. And what are these other key discussions set to be taking place today?
Good afternoon, Michelle. Well, we are here at the Invested Building in Sandton, and of course the G20 Sherpa having 15 tracks that it's focusing on, or priority areas: agriculture, artificial intelligence, unemployment and the labour markets, sustainable developments, and dealing with climate change being just some of them. Day 1, of course, dealt with the burden of debt specifically on African countries such as South Africa, as well as dealing with tax avoidance by large corporates, as well as just the economic environment that the global economy really finds itself in, and how to stimulate growth. So it is just about lunchtime, Michelle. Most of the sessions taking place are still closed, but perhaps we can just help our viewers give context into exactly why these discussions are significant. A Sherpa from Nepal, Michelle, being those guys who help people who climb up to Mount Everest get up to the top of the mountain. So they are those guys, if you've seen documentaries, who help people carry their bags and navigate those routes. So basically it's the leaders of those economies that are then here to chart out those conversations, which hopefully will then lead to, as we see those 120 meetings that are set to take place during South Africa's presidency, have those conversations then lead into actual action points and policy that would deal with those issues. So as I said, and as you highlighted at the beginning of this conversation, today the focus really being around unemployment, inclusive growth, ensuring that youth and women, particularly on the continent, are given those opportunities to really penetrate the economy. And an important conversation, Michelle, that we've had over the past 2 weeks when we got that Q3 GDP data out of Stats SA is what's going on in the agricultural sector. That's, of course, after we saw that 28.8% decline in the industry in that third quarter. So conversations around how to ensure the agricultural sector and farmers in that industry are able to grow, gain access to new markets. So some of then the points that leaders are digging into this morning, Michelle. As I said, it is just about lunchtime, so we are hoping to be able to have some conversations about what is coming out of these meetings and what it means really for the average South African, what G20 South Africa's presidency will mean for those people's daily lives, Michelle.
And when you think about the kinds of people that have gathered there in Ntokozo, as a business reporter, this being South Africa's first G20 presidency, who are some of those key conversations? Who are the people you want to have some of those key conversations with?
Well, of course, we've heard, President Cyril Ramaphosa strengthening those trade relations with the likes of Nigeria. So we do have some other stakeholders as well that are in attendance from the rest of the continent's leadership as well, from the African Continental Free Trade Area, just in terms of pushing that agreement and ensuring that it does benefit the continent when we do have, a presidency such as the G20 that puts us on that global stage. So making sure that some of the partnerships that we have here on the continent work as, part of that integrated plan when it comes to our position on the global economic stage, Michelle. So in about an hour or so, we'll be able to get a sense of who exactly is here from that leadership. Of course, our business editor, Golani, having spoken to some of those leaders yesterday, largely from the African continent and the team from the South African presidency. So as soon as we do get the break and we get a little bit more detailed program in terms of the leadership that is here, Michelle, I will give those insights. But I do know that it is policy leaders that are responsible then for those 15 track priority areas that G20 Sherpa has set themselves out. So it is those central bank deputy governors. We also have National Treasury here, so we are hoping to also hear from them. But then counterparts from the other G20 members when it comes from the central bank as well as National Treasury. And of course, we know those two institutions being the ones responsible for the country's monetary and fiscal policy. And of course, that shapes where investments are made, Michelle, when it comes to then driving economic growth in context of that G20 presidency.
Ntokozo Khumalo has left us there in Sandton. It is day 2 of South Africa's first set of meetings at the helm of the G20. Ntokozo, thanks very much indeed.